The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 2, Film Volt 12 Hours of Silverstone, is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Leak Gaming, SimLab, Motorvision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, and AMD Ryzen Radeon. The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 2, Film Volt 12 Hours of Silverstone, is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Leak Gaming, SimLab, Motorvision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, and AMD Ryzen Radeon.
Podemos sobar dulu kan?
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
Welcome back everybody to the Film Vault 12 Hours of Silverstone. 9 hours to go at the moment. We're a quarter of the way through the race, but there's been no end to the battling so far. Pretty much in a true fashion of our luck, the battle completely exploded as soon as we went to an ad break. You might have just seen the precursor to it before you went to the advertisements, that we were just showing to you. The number 45 car got overtaken by both the Pescara and the Musto cars, so they're now down to 4th place in the GTE category. There was an LMP2 involved, there was a car bouncing across the curbs. It was crazy going on there, Neil.
Yes, again, I apologise for introducing the commercial break at exactly the wrong time. Just before it went full screen, you could maybe see about half a second of someone launching themselves over the sausage curb at the club chicane. That I'll take responsibility for that one. But yes, and what you can see on screen as well at the moment is a at least the radio from the number 45 DIS Sim Racing Lab car as well. So anything they say is then broadcast, which sometimes that can be a good idea. But as you said, yes, Giuseppe De Fuoco in the 53 Musto GT Esports car, currently in the middle of that battle now between the 7 and the 45.
Yeah, we'll put a bit of a warning on that one, because if you hear something that might not be quite fit for broadcast, then we do apologise, but it's totally live, so we can't really do anything about it, because it's exactly what they're saying right now, and we can't really do anything about that, I'm afraid. But yeah, from time to time, emotions can run high, and yeah, you might say something that might not quite be fit for broadcast, I'm afraid. So I will put that warning out there just in case something does indeed happen like that. But there won't obviously be constant talking out there. You've got to let your driver concentrate, of course. But no, it will be very interesting to hear the communication that's going on between the car and the team. But one interesting thing we were talking about during the break there, talking about the pit strategy that they might be employing. We know that the 45 guys like to employ a little bit of strategy from time to time, but is it possible they are going for the triple stint at this point? I thought that was completely out of the question at the start of the day, but maybe they think it is the right call.
Anything can be possible. I mean, yes. It might not end in a good result, but anything is possible. But yes, you can see the gap between these three cars now, about 1.5 seconds separating the three cars, as you've got LMP2 traffic siding their way through this battle as well. And you know, that's going to be something that you're always careful of when you're driving a faster class. For example, the LMP2s here, is that try not impede the GT traffic too much, because you could be ruining one of their races as well.
Yeah, absolutely. In GT3, by the way, we've got the in-lap flashing now for Mugen Sim Racing. They came in quite early in the cycle, and this is actually quite before I was expecting them to be in, but are they going to stay out? Yes, they are. So keep an eye on those guys. They'll be in the next few laps, but it's still very close in GT3. You can see that Aston Martin in the background, and that is the car trailing at the moment. 2 or 3 seconds, it looks like, from what I can see. So still a very interesting battle going on, but another pit stop cycle coming up, as we keep mentioning, in both GT and GT3. So we've just got to watch out for the next strategy play that these guys are going to take on.
Indeed, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what the strategy is, and something that you were talking about just before our last commercial break is about fuel saving, and you know how to make it, how to perhaps make a car last a couple of laps longer. There was a very interesting conversation that I listened to last weekend at Daytona 24 Hours, and it was about Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon is well known as one of the best drivers in the world for fuel saving. And essentially, he said the difference between sprint racing and fuel saving is that essentially all you do is smoothen out every single input into the car. And by smoothing out every single input, you can then stretch the fuel mileage so much more than you could if you're just driving at 100% the entire time with very rapidly changing, jagged inputs. So that's something that I found that is very, very interesting. He did say, you know, that's something that you've got to learn, essentially, because always when you're driving, the instinct is to just drive 100% and just mash the throttle, mash the brake, turn in almost as you know, sharply as possible, if you like. But if you really want to fuel save, you cannot do anything like that. You've got to be incredibly gentle with the car.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point, actually. It's not something I considered. Obviously, something that, or the only thing that I've really considered is the way you use your throttle has just got to change. You've got to lift off going into the corners, might have to short shift a little bit to save a few millilitres here and there of fuel. But yeah, that's a very interesting thing. I guess when you do keep things smooth like that, you can keep your momentum up a little bit, so you don't need to quite accelerate so hard, and it's not quite as hard on the car. So, and I bet that's quite a good way to preserve components as well, if that's something you have to worry about. Yeah, just smoothing everything out is a good idea.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. That's how, by doing that, that's how you can maintain the same amount of speed, but by using less fuel. And it could be as simple as things as, for example, no longer trail braking into corners. You know, just making sure you only ever touch the throttle or the brake at any one time is also very good for fuel consumption as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A few tips there for everybody. I certainly didn't know that, and not that I've ever been in a situation where I've had to fuel save massively. But yeah, it's a very interesting discussion, actually. We may see a bit of fuel saving as well towards the end of this race. We were talking about the kind of difference between making 10 stops in this race and making 11 if you're a GT car. If it could be difficult at the end of the race, you might have to fuel save a little. If you're going for just 10 stops, then you might have to fuel save right towards the end.
Yeah, fuel saving that final stint in particular is not really something you want to do. If you can fuel save, you want to do it in the middle part of the race most ideally, because at the beginning part of the race you're more likely to be very close to rivals, and you want to try and push them as hard as possible. You want to try and gain as much time as possible. At the end, essentially you want to do the same, especially if you're trying to close down someone in the final hour, or indeed trying to stay ahead of someone in the final hour. So really at that point you also want to be at 100%. So really, if you want to fuel save and extend those stints a little bit, doing it in the middle of the race is the best opportunity for doing that.
I guess as well, there could be some rain, and that might make it a bit easier to fuel save in this particular race, because you're using a bit less throttle when you're in the rain. Meanwhile, in GTE, things are still kicking off here. Giuseppe Di Fuoco and Eros Masciuli are getting very close indeed. They've been battling pretty much the entire stint so far over second place, kind of leaving DASSR Lab behind, but this is a great battle right now. We've seen Fuoco make a few lunges, few probing moves, but nothing decisive just yet.
Not yet, indeed, and Di Fuoco there is perhaps just biding his time, just analysing Masciuli's driving style a little bit and seeing, right, where is my car stronger on the circuit, where is Masciuli and that number 7 car, where are they a little bit slower, are they more vulnerable in one of these slower corners, are they vulnerable in one of the big braking zones?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all things that you've got to calculate. A load of traffic as well just going through here at the moment. That's Unison Racing just up in front. Hypercars coming through. Bell B2's coming through as well. All 4 classes in one shot very briefly there. That's, I believe, Omicron from the Hypercar team. Bit of GT3 traffic, a bit of GT3 lappery going on there, and it's just not fallen quite right for Di Fuoco there. Had to go around the outside through Maggots, which is not really what you want to be doing, but Unison Racing now in front of Pescara and Musto on the circuit. They're going to both try and get them through here into Stowe right now, see whether they can, but no, not quite. We're seeing right now the gap between GT3 and GTE in pace is not very big, so it's quite difficult to get through on them sometimes.
Yes, it can be very difficult, and really across here at Silverstone, it's maybe only about 1.5 or 2 seconds a lap difference. So in order for GTEs to overtake, and indeed lap GT3s, there's always got to be a little bit of cooperation between the two classes.
Yeah, absolutely. Cooperation is very, very important, and it comes back to what we were mentioning earlier on. Being predictable, being helpful is actually is quicker than being a little bit annoying and trying to get in the way of prototypes and other GTEs. There's a big defence there from Masciuli. Round the outside for Di Fuoco. That was very aggressive in the end, and Masciuli sliding his way through the turn 3, but straight up the inside goes Di Fuoco through turn number 4, and now he's finally through. Masciuli did his very best there to try and stay in front for as long as possible, but in the end he was living on borrowed time a little bit. Now he's down into third, but he's not giving up just yet. Di Fuoco defends into Brooklands and holds on to the place for the moment.
Yeah, the way that Di Fuoco actually made that move was very interesting. Essentially, he essentially just dove it up the inside of turn 4, the left-handed hairpin on the loop, and did that by almost faking out Masciuli a little bit, because he moved to the right as if he was just going to follow him, and as soon as pretty much just before the braking zone happened, he suddenly dove to the left-hand side, to the inside of that corner, went up the inside and made that move stick. It was a very, very good overtaking move there, just almost faking out Masciuli a little bit.
Yeah, you had to. At that point, though, it was coming, and I think for Mashuli and for both of them actually, it was probably more sensible to let him go. Battling at that point is very, very costly in terms of your time. So I think Mashuli made the right call there. Just let De Fuoco go. You might get him back later on, but it's sensible for both of you just to fall into line and let the Musto car go through at that point, I think.
Indeed it is. It's really about, essentially, in this central part of the race as well, it's all about picking your battles at this point as well, and that's exactly what you're saying, just perhaps saying...
Yeah, I agree. Picking your battles is very, very important. In the GT category, it's not over yet in terms of the battling. P number 4 is now where the battles are coming from. DAS SR Lab are holding on at this point. They're on older tyres than everyone else, we believe, because of the way they're losing time compared to everybody else. They're falling through the field, it has to be said. Luka Furlich, who was... dropping down a little bit earlier on because of a crash or at least a spin, a bit of contact. We didn't quite see what happened, but he was in trouble at Woodcote and nearly got collected by a fair few cars. Recovering again now and onto the back of the 45 car as we got one of the prototypes trying to go through. Number 45 going a little bit wide, and now Volante and Luka Furlich really going to fancy his chances getting through on this Porsche.
Yes, really fancy the chances getting through on this Porsche. As you were saying, that DIS SR Sim Racing Lab car is under a lot of pressure from that 67. And again, just having a look at traffic coming through, faster traffic of course. Coming through and just weaving their way through this GT battle. So we've got, as I believe, we've also got the radio up from the number 45 yet again, the car that's trying to stay in 4th position. Doing quite well with it at the moment. Volante just caught one of the McLaren GT3s at the wrong point there, and quite a bit of time. Prototypes coming through as well. Very busy part of the track at the moment is the Hangar Straight, and that's where they find themselves right now. A couple more prototypes in the background as well. That was the LMP2 leader who just went through, and there's a couple more behind. I believe they're up towards the front actually. I think that might be Coloxai and maybe Carlos Basto of Ramada, maybe Sandro Ballesteros, all in that kind of portion of the racetrack, and it's making things very, very tricky. Number 67, by the way, didn't even score any points for their position at Indianapolis. They came 11th, but got the point for completing the race at the very least. However, they find themselves dead last in the championship with only 1 point after that race, and so they're going to aim to redeem themselves here today. The top 5 would do exactly that, I think. Yes, top 5 looking to do exactly that, and really, as we were saying, a 6-race championship, you can probably afford one bad race throughout the championship. But if you have a second one, well, you're really not going to have that much hope at winning your respective championship. Having a look at Luka Furlich now, that number 67 car, the one trying to chase down that number 45 car. That gap appears to have gone up ever so slightly in the last lap or so. Last time when they came round Woodcote, it was only about half a second between the two of them, but that gap's now gone up to a full second.
Yeah, just a bit of ebb and flow in traffic. I'm sure that the number 45 are going to have similar treatment soon, and they're going to lose a lot of time, bringing the Aston Martin right up to the back of the Porsche once again. But that's just the way things go. The ebb and flow of traffic just changing these battles with every lap, with 4 different classes out here today and 33 cars, all of which are still on the race circuit, by the way. All of those started out of the 37 entries that we have. 33 started the race, and they're all still here, which is good to see. Certainly, Martin Hemmingson is Henry Sinnick is. That was a bit of habit saying Martin Hemmington's still leading, but no, it's Henry Sinnick at this point. Drillers Esports are leading either way, and it's the best part of a lap right now to Thomas Garcia, with nearly over 3 hours gone now. So they are putting in a decent performance at the moment, Omicron, but they do need issues for Drillers, and it's hard to see those kind of issues coming at the moment.
Oh, pardon me, just throwing across to me as soon as I started yawning. Fantastic, I'll try and not do that next time. But yes, that trailer sport car, as you said, doing very well. It's just as I believe one of the hypercars just dove into the pits, unless my eyes deceive me on the timing column. Indeed, it was the leaders, that number 10 Drillers eSport car, and essentially all of the MP2 cars are in at the moment as well. Chisnik in 117, Varga, Adanovsky in the 17 Drillers, Gonzalez in the 334 Fair Racing team, Barbosa in the 15 Juicers Motorsport car, Basta in the 57 Ramada Motorsport car, and Matthias Pedersen in the treble 7 DSR Nightmare. All those LP2 cars in the pits as it stands. And in terms of GTEs, we're looking at a big raft of pit stops there as well. Not only GTEs but GT3s as well.
Yeah, it's that time again. We've had another 20 odd laps for LMP2, so expect those guys. They are on schedule, should I say. Oh, that was very close. Drillers Esports trying to get through on Volante Racing there with the Fair Racing team. I think they're just following them through. I think that's actually the battle for third in that class, and it is indeed Chris Gonzalez versus Timothej Andonovsky. So that's a big battle going on in the LMP2 category, trying to make their way through GT traffic at the same time. Very, very interesting battle actually going on as they go through Magnus and Beckett's now.
Yes, going through the S's section, and two battles for position, two battles I was going to say both for the podium, but no, that's not quite true. Two battles for position, both nose to tail, all trying to overtake each other, and that the classes overtaking each other, and it's always good to see battles continue after traffic has been passed. And just having a look down the Hanger Straight as well, it's a massive gaggle of cars. I think there's about 10 cars on the Hanger Straight at the same time at the moment.
Yeah, they really are clumping together for whatever reason. There's a big clump of traffic going through into Club Corner right now. I'll try to get a look at that, but that is the battle for P4 and GTE also involved in that train. So is Unison Racing, the leaders of GT3, taking it out a little bit longer here at the moment. One Move and Mugen have both been into the pit lane, by the way, and both had driver changes as well. Donat Diesner is in for Mugen, and Ludovic Darqui is now in for One Move Esport. Just waiting for Nikolai Betrikov now from Unison Racing, and we will have completed another round of GT3 stops. But in LMP2, it is not too far away from a round of stops either. Drillers versus Fair Racing team at the moment for the podium.
Yes, 17 versus 334 as it stands, and the gap between the two of them about 1.1 seconds as they're coming along the old start finish straight now. The drivers at 334 being Paul Holt, Tony Janssen, Pimva Mark, Max Scholten and Chris Gonzalez. We've already seen Pimva Mark in that car, and we're now seeing Gonzalez taking over it now and trying to chase down Adanovsky in that number 17 as they're coming into the S's one more time.
They are indeed. It looks like the Fair Racing team cars just dropped back a little bit from where it was before, really, because it was a lot closer before this particular that last gaggle of traffic, and now it's not quite so close anymore. So Andonovsky may have just been held up slightly, and then they've had to then there's a bit of an extending of the gap once again. Meanwhile, in GTE, Volante have been in again. It was on the completion of lap 92, about 31 laps for them again. But with the rivals doing about 34 laps or so at the best, they're going to be losing quite a lot of laps in the end. If they're losing 3 or 4 laps every single stint to their rivals, then they might end up making an extra pit stop in this race, which is going to cause them huge problems with their actual race result.
Well, 3 or 4 laps per stint would actually make it about 2 extra pit stops, wouldn't it? Memory serves me correctly. I think my rough maths would actually make it 2 extra pit stops over the course of 12 hours. But yes, Adanovsky and Gonzalez making their way down the Wellington Straight towards Luffield and Brooklands, or I should say Brooklands and Luffield, because they come in that order. Going underneath one of the many spectator bridges around Silverstone as well. And I must say that spectator bridge over Wellington Straight is a fantastic place to watch the cars come racing underneath you.
quite scary. But it is a good place. You get very close but just feel like it's going to fall down all the time when these cars go.
It's always the same with pedestrian bridges over racetracks.
Yes.
You feel this little tinge of fear for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, it's quite scary as well. Yeah, but no, it is entertaining all the same. We've got overtaking opportunity down there into Brooklands, of course, and a few of those guys using the Wellington straight to do just that. Just looking up and down the field right now for maybe the next battle and where it's going to come from. Not seeing too many, just some small gaps that are out there. 1 second here, 2 seconds there, that kind of thing. But in GTE, I'm a little bit surprised because Giordano Valeriano is leading by a good 40 seconds at the moment. Might even be more than that at this point. I'll just have a look. 47 seconds to his teammate. I'm a little bit surprised by that, really, because I thought GTE was going to be a little bit closer. I wonder if it's all going to close up again when this race comes to a conclusion, when the strategies figure themselves out. But that is certainly a big lead to be having with 3.5 hours gone nearly.
Oh, that was just having a look at a replay a few seconds ago. It was a massive lock-up by, I believe it was Adamovsky actually, coming into turn 3 as Sebastian Hove, I believe, has made a move on the 26 One Move eSport car as well, coming down to Brooklands.
Looks like that is the case indeed, and he has, yeah. So up into third place there, Sebastian Hove, and I'm not sure if that's if he's on the same pit stop strategy, if he's made a stop in this cycle or not. But if he has, then that's great news for Danish Sim Racing, Danish Racing League, should I say. But if not, then not quite so good news. But I'd like to see them do well here today and get up there in the order. I'm just going to check where they finished in Indianapolis. Second place in the end. Weren't able to quite chase down Unison Racing, but still they've shown that they do have the pace, and there they are again in third position in their Ferrari, just ahead of One Move. So that's a good move for Sebastian Hove, and he's up onto the provisional podium spots because of the demise of Glam Racing. That spot is now really up for grabs with those two Ferraris.
Would you say that Sebastian Hove made one move up the inside of the 26 car?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, great.
There we go. That was a horrific pun.
I enjoyed that.
Anyway, thank you. As indeed Sebastian Hove now, P3's got 20 seconds to try and chase down that number 41 Mugen Sim Racing car.
No, I did enjoy that. That was quite good, to be fair. Either way, one of the Aston Martins is coming out of the pit lane. I think that might actually be Glam Racing. Is it? Hard to tell. But it says that Unison Racing are on their in-lap at the moment. So we'll see if that is true, and if they do indeed come into the pit lane at the end of this one, or if it's been lying to us at the moment, the live timing. Sticking it to the right hand side, so indeed they are into the pit lane. Nikolai Bezrukov comes in then for Unison Racing, and we'll see now if there's a driver change. Nearly 3.5 hours in that car. I wouldn't expect him to go more than 4.5 hours. That really is a 9-man stint at this stage, so I am fully expecting him to get out of that car now.
That means 50 seconds. It means he could perhaps just come back out in front of the Mugen Sim Racing team car. But if they're going to driver swap in the tyres as well, that 50 seconds is not going to come out back out in front.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll wait and see what the situation is with that. Although Mugen did make a driver swap in that last stop as well. Donat Diesner is now into that car for Alam Serej, the Hungarian driver. Third place in Indianapolis were Mugen, and it is the same top three at the moment as it was in Indy, but not quite in the same order. Unison Racing are leading where they were in Indianapolis, but Mugen Sim Racing are in second instead of third, which is where they came last month. But down the pit lane goes Mugen Sim Racing. They're straight through, and no competition really. Unison Racing still in their pit box, and they could be in trouble. They could be down into fourth place here if they're not especially careful. Sebastian Hove is coming around the final corner right now, and he could actually get up into second place right now. We'll see. Out of the pit lane comes Unison Racing, and are they going to be in second place when they leave or not? I believe they just about are. Yes, they do retain second place, but it's a lot closer than I was expecting.
Yes, continuing to retain second place, but that gap, well, it's gone way down from where it was before. Sebastian Hove has managed to get away ever so slightly from that one move car ever since that move a couple of laps ago. That gap is now up to 1.8, sometimes even 2 seconds as they come around the circuit. So it appears that number 13 car has a good amount of pace in it. But as you said, that number 13 car now trying to chase down the 717.
Yeah, absolutely. That's next up. Alexander Zakirov has got into that car, by the way, for Nikolai Bezrikov. So a bit of chopping and changing in terms of the drivers for those guys. In LMP2, João Barbosa has been into the pit lane, and we've got a lot of flashing on the screen right now. I think pit stops are coming up sooner rather than later, because as we mentioned, we've had another 20 laps or so, and I'm fully expecting a bit of a pit stop in the next few moments for some of these guys. Let's see what the closest battles are, really. Andonovsky versus Chris Gonzalez is about 5-10 seconds at the moment, I would say. Carlos Basto is now out in front of João Barbosa, although I believe he has to make a stop, so that battle isn't quite legitimate in terms of where they're going to be at the end. However, they are still close together on the circuit, and LMP2 has been quite reliable so far today, actually, in the battling. If you want to battle, then often you just got to look there, and there has been one for pretty much the entire race so far.
And you're saying that the LMP2s have been fairly reliable, and something else that is reliable is, of course, all of our sponsors who can give you some great products, and we'll have some words from them in just a couple of seconds.
The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 2, Film Bold 12 Hours of Silverstone, is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Leak Gaming, SimLab, Motorvision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, and AMD Ryzen Radeon.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
Welcome back to the Film Vault 12 Hours of Silverstone. I'm Ewan O'Leary alongside Neil Heatley here for the next half an hour or so. We've had a very interesting race so far, homing in on 4 hours gone already, which is quite remarkable. Big welcome to everybody who was joining us from all around the world and all the different platforms as well. YouTube, Facebook and all the social medias we're streaming on. Also Amazon Fire, Roku and ESTV as well. About 3 million sites we're streaming on. There's a lot. So welcome to you all. You're very welcome, and I hope that you're enjoying the show so far. Had some more incidents coming in from race control. One more to report for you. Car number 57 has hit the ProSim 007 before overtaking, and so that's obviously not allowed. So I do believe that they have received a drive-through penalty for that. I'm not entirely sure what severity the penalty is, but I think it is a drive-through, as most of these are. So Ramada Motorsport in the wars a little bit, I'm afraid, here, and getting a drive-through penalty for an incident.
Yes, and of course that is exactly what you don't want in an endurance race, is to be in one of these incidents. But yes, we are now, 3.5 hours into the race, and that means another round of LMP2 pit stops.
Yeah, another one. In case you were bored of them yet, I hope you weren't, because we've got another load of them. Ramada have just, or were in the pit lane while we were on the ad break there. So they've sorted themselves out now, and they're back out there onto the circuit again. Just trying to work out who might come in next, really, because I feel like this stint's going on forever in LMP2, but maybe it's just because I've missed a few pit stops here and there. Mika Hakimi, for the 999 car is into the pit lane at the moment, and those guys have sorted out their particular issues that they had a few moments ago with their connection being not very stable at all, and actually a danger to other people. They've sorted that out now, though, with Hakimi driving, and also we've had some driver changes up towards the front. Christopher Kienek is in for Mugen Sim Racing, and so David Koloksai has been unless I've missed that driver change. David Koloksai was driving for a fair while there, but Kienek now is into that car for what I believe is, not confirmed, but I do believe that it's an all-Hungarian team, that particular one.
Yes, that has been the driver swap at the most recent pit stop for that LMP2 car, and that would make sense, because that would mean it would be 4 stints in the car, and then changing driver after 4 stints, and that would make sense.
Yeah, it would indeed. That all falls into place. They're not really near anyone in terms of a battle right now, but Chris Gonzalez kind of is. He saw Andonovski, or I saw Andonovski go through the bottom of shot there for Drillers, just about less than 10 seconds up the road, I would say, at this point. I'm just going to get an actual reading on that gap. It's just growing out, actually, closer to 5, so a bit closer than I initially thought, but they found themselves a little bit of free track space as Varga Sim Racing are into the pit lane. Marcel Chinsick making his pit stop, which is completely on schedule as well, at the end of lap 111. Another 22-ish lap stint for those guys, and so they're in the Varga Sim Racing class. They are still leading, of course, as Chris Gonzalez also comes in, albeit he is already a lap down compared to Varga.
Number 54 cars in the pits as well, the Musto GT Esports car, and that, to me at least, is unscheduled.
That does indeed seem to me as well, actually, if that is indeed correct, although I can't see them in the pit lane at the moment, but maybe I'm being a bit blind here, but I can't see them in there, although there is. So we'll have a look into that one and see, but that would seem a little bit off schedule, or would it? Maybe 33 laps per stint, maybe that is okay, but seemingly on a half an hour, that is a bit weird. Maybe they're doing 3 hours and 10 minutes or so, and they are just stretching this quite far, but that does seem a little bit weird to see a GT car in on a half hour.
Matthias Pedersen in the 777 DSR Nightmare car, and Martin Wrigley in the 95 DEAC Hackers car, both of those being LMP2, so they are both in the pits as well. As it stands, same goes for Gonzalez in the 334 Racing Team car as well. So a big, as we said, 45 minutes, that means a raft of LMP pit stops. That appears to be continuing, as Thomas Garcia is now flashing green in the timing column, which means he's at least requested his next pit stop in that number 80 Omicron Sim Racing car.
Yeah, he has indeed, second place overall at the moment in that hypercar. Not quite a lap down yet, which is a little bit surprising. Thought Garcia was going to get caught. Maybe that sounds a bit rude, but I was expecting him to get lapped by this point, but they haven't been so far. So hanging on in there for the moment, and you never know, as something could befall drillers like what happened in Indianapolis once again, but it's difficult for them at this particular point. The gap's about, I'd say, 90 seconds between the two of them, and holding station as well, really. So yeah, Garcia is putting in a pretty good performance for the moment, and we'll just see over a race distance really where they are, because I know that Garcia and Patrick Skilvassi are the faster two from their team, and maybe the Joseph Frederick Suto is not quite as quick as those guys, which was kind of obvious too as at Indianapolis when he had to battle for the lead actually with a few hours to go.
As the 717 and the 41 are beginning to close as well for the GT3 lead.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling up to find that at the moment. Here they are once again, and we're absolutely right. Yusuf has pulled that one out of the bag from. He's telling us where to look basically, because
yes,
we're not looking at what we should be basically. But no, we've got a great battle going on in GT3 at the moment. In terms of third place, Danish Racing League and Sebastian Hovich really pulling away from Ludovic Darquis, which is surprising me a little bit, but. This is going to be great now between the McLaren and the Aston Martin. These two teams are just so well matched, Unison Racing and Mugen Sim Racing, that they're bound to be like this for the entire race. We're nearly 4 hours in now, and it is still this close.
It is still this close between the two cars as they're making their way through the loop. And of course, they've always got to be mindful of LMP2 and hypercar traffic that might come through, but also GTEs as well. There really is hypercar and LMP2 that they are looking for as they're coming down the Wellington Street towards Brooklands.
Here we go then, Unison Racing on the outside line there with Alexander Zakirov, trying to go around the outside through Brooklands, which would have given him the inside through Luffield, but it's an awfully long corner to be making your way around the outside. Maybe you can get a bit of traction off of Luffield and through Woodcote into Copse now. Is there going to be a little bit of a late move? He's in the slipstream nicely. That McLaren punching a hole in the air for the bigger Aston Martin in behind, but holding on for now is the Mugen Sim Racing car. This is a battle that is going to continue though, and it's going to be shaped by traffic. Just look at the LMP2 behind. That's the Juices car, I believe the number 15 with Charles Barbosa driving it. Is it? Yes, it is indeed. So he doesn't want to lose much time, but these guys don't want to lose time either, so that's when they begin to come into conflict, these two classes.
Indeed, you're saying punching a big hole in the air, but at least it's not as big a hole as the 240 km/h country mansion that I call the Bentley Continental GT3. As they're making their way down towards Stowe and eventually to the club chicane, can that 717 make a move onto the 41?
Yeah, it's not quite as big as the BMW M8 either, by the way. I'm sure you've all seen. I'm sure you all know what I'm on about, but yes, it is. It's a fairly sleek car actually, the McLaren. It's not quite as sleek as the new 720S, but the older generation that we got on show here from Mugen is still a pretty sleek car and pretty slippery in a straight line as well. But the Aston Martin has just seemingly got a bit more raw power right now. Really gave it a good go into Brooklands last time, into Copse as well. Did Zakirov. and now there's going to be a lot of defending for Donat Diesner in the lead with that Mugen Sim Racing car coming out of the loop right now, and it's a good run for the Aston Martin. Just look at the way he's almost pushing Diesner through Aintree. Now is the inside line going to be open for him? Maybe. There's a little bit of a jink to the right. He goes back in, and there's a late defense as well from Diesner. Very tight on the inside line goes Zakirov. Can he maybe keep this stick through into Luffield as well? Yes, he can indeed. He gets the sweeping line on the entry to this corner, the long hairpin, and now Alexander Zakirov does indeed take the lead for Unison Racing in GT3. Mugen Racing demoted to P2 with that battle there, but I'm sure they will be back again later to continue this fight.
Yeah, no doubt that number 41 car has enough speed to make it back to the rear wing of that 717 car, and as you said, you're in a very nice move just directly up the inside of Brooklands. Managed to make the move done, managed to get completely overtake before even getting into the turn-in point for Luffield.
Yeah, that was quite impressive, really, to come from behind like that on the narrow angle that he was. I know that he was going to struggle to get round the outside through Brooklands on the last lap, and you might be wondering why I gave Diesner a bit more of a chance of hanging around the outside, but the amount of the tight line that the Aston Martin had to take into Brooklands really meant that it was just very, very close for Diesner, and he might have been able to actually hang it around there, but he couldn't in the end, and he's had to stick behind for now. These guys quite early on in their stint, by the way, about 20 laps away, I think. Yeah, it could be that... sorry, I'm getting a bit distracted. It could be that this battle is going to continue on for quite a long time, and obviously it's going to and fro a little bit with the different strategies that are actually happening.
You see that with the gap that they've got at the moment, that really hasn't increased at all. It's still about the half second mark, which is very unlike the moves that we've seen before, and pretty much for the entirety of the 4 hours of the race so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just have to watch it really, and carry on keeping an eye on it, seeing what's going to develop there. Meanwhile, in GTE, Pescara are now leading the race. I don't know if they've been into the pit lane yet, though. If they've made a bit of a strategy call, then they might well be in the lead legitimately right now, but they are in front of Giordano Valeriano, taking this stint very long. I think it is still possible for them to be out there on the same actual race, the same actual stint right now, and he really could be in he really could be in the lead legitimately right now. So we'll just have to wait for these next few moments. If he starts staying out another 5 laps or so, then we know that he's been in the pits and he's making a bit of a strategy call.
Yes, making a strategy call, and strategy is almost as crucial a part of racing as actually just being consistent and the speed. But Adanovsky is now catching down the 3-3-4 car. It's going to be Drillers versus Fair Racing Team.
It is indeed. Andonovsky was actually in front that Driller's car was in front as they went into the pits on the last occasion, but obviously there's been a bit of a change around again. Chris Gonzalez has gained a bit of time in the pit stops, and so he's back up into 3rd place, and doing quite well at the moment. He's going to have to really work hard to hold on from Andonovsky though at the moment. Andonovsky did gain 3 tenths on the last particular lap, or 2 laps ago. He gained no, that was 3 tenths. That was last lap, excuse me. So it's slowly bringing this gap down, and when they get to the line again, we'll know whether it's closed even more possibly. But a bit of traffic through Maggots and Beckett's for Chris Gonzalez. That's really going to close this gap, because that's the worst place to catch a slower car.
Yes, one of the absolute worst places to catch it. Of course, there are many bad places, generally every circuit, but that is one of the worst here at Silverstone. That number 17 car is James Juba, Junitai and Bogdanov being the 3 drivers currently. And of course Timothy Adanovsky, the driver that's currently driving it. So we've got 4 drivers signed up that number 17 car, and again they're still chasing down that 3-3-4 car. The gap was about 2 seconds a couple of laps ago, and that's now down to 1.
Yeah, indeed. So Andonovsky's been brought over from the Hypercar team, by the way, and I think Well, I don't really know why, but that certainly is the case. It's probably going to stay the same for the season as well. Maybe they're just rotating their drivers a little bit because they're running a little bit low on numbers this weekend, and they need to distribute their resources. excuse me, distribute their drivers and resources accordingly. They've also got your own Kweekel, of course, who's not actually part of the 3-driver lineup on the entry list for the championship, but it's Andonovski and Kweekel only so far. James Zuber has been driving this weekend as well. He was driving in qualifying last night. So about 3 drivers at the very least for LMP2 for drillers, and then they've got Hemmingson and Cynic monitoring things over in the Hypercar class. So I think they will have everything covered nicely.
Yes, they will have everything covered nicely, as you said. And again, as you said, just redistributing their resources, because of course not everyone will be available on every weekend. So just leveling out the playing field, making sure that the cars have enough drivers to be able to finish the respective races. And yes, this battle looks to be very, very good between these 2 LMP2 cars, as also in the split screen it looks like that may well be the number 80 hypercar as well.
Yeah, indeed, there's a good a bit of indecision there from Chris Gonzalez, actually, trying to go down the inside of one of the GT3 McLarens, the 720S there. Good cutback for Andonovski to slip his way through as well, gains more time, and so now Gonzalez and Andonovski are going to be fighting. Before you know it, ID SimSport are now in front of them in the Porsche. It's just constant traffic out there at the moment. 33 cars. You might think that it's not too many. It's quite a lot, but it's not the most we've ever seen out there on the circuit. We had more cars at Le Mans, for example, but it's just extremely busy out there on the circuit, and there is GT traffic almost everywhere on pretty much every single lap. If you're a prototype driver, you're overtaking a slower car.
Yes, and that's something that you've really got to be careful of, especially at this point in the race. You've always got to keep your eyes ahead for where the next GT car is. Perhaps you have a little map in the corner, perhaps you'll have a little scrolling bar, if you like, as well. Perhaps you might have relative timing, just to make sure that you keep an eye on where that next GT car is.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll have people from the team telling you, informing you about that, as well as a Ferrari in between them at the moment, briefly. But another overtake going on there. I believe that's Unison Racing up in front as well. One of the Aston Martins, anyway, although it might not be Unison. We'll see. It doesn't really matter to these guys, though. Straight around the outside, and that was very, very smooth from Andonovski indeed. Just slipping his way through on that Aston Martin at the same time as Gonzalez, making sure he didn't lose any time. That allows him to latch onto the slipstream down the hanger straight, which is just going to drag him along and get him a little bit closer to the 3-3-4 in the hopes that he might be able to make an overtake very soon.
Indeed, that slipstream reducing the air resistance against your car, which means you can accelerate faster and reach a faster top speed compared to the car in front. And that's going to be very, very helpful for Andonovski as he tries to make a move on Gonzalez in that 3-3-4.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very close between the two of them at the moment. But where is this move going to come? Is it going to come at all? We'll find out. It could be in traffic here with one going one way. If Gonzalez chooses one way, then Andonovski might find himself going the other in the hope that Gonzalez has chosen the wrong option, especially if he begins to struggle to get onto the podium right now and get through on the Dutch Fair Racing Team car. So out onto the Wellington Straight then. There is an Aston Martin, I believe GTE from Volante up in front of them right now, so maybe Andonovski will be able to use that in the hopes that he will be able to get through on this particular lap. It's been a decent drive from Andonovski so far here today. They started out quite far down the order because of that penalty we mentioned. He got in qualifying 1 added to his lap time, and so he's started, I believe he started outside the top 10, which is quite remarkable. But he's done a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the overtaking in this race, dragging that team up towards the front positions, and they're looking at him possibly right now.
Yes, and that gap between Andonovski and Gonzalez still continuing to reduce. It's now down to half a second between the two of them as they're making their way down the hanger straight and really coming into Stowe. It is a very high speed point of the circuit, but the braking point for Stowe really isn't that long.
No, and that's often puts an end to a lot of challenges for an actual overtake in this one. Very close going through there. That's a squeeze from the Ferrari going into the club chicane, but very well done in the end from Andonovski to get through on the traffic once again. So out onto the main straight they go again here. Fair Racing Team versus Drillers Esports. I believe the car they just overtook was Sebastian Hove in the... no, it wasn't actually. It was another one of the Ferrari GT3 cars. I believe it was a GT3 anyway. But it could have been a GTE car, never know, but that is definitely Mugen Sim Racing just out there right now, and the Unisim Racing in the foreground as well, so I think it was Sebastian Hope they just overtook there. It doesn't matter to these LMP2s though, but that does give an illustration to us at least how close GT3 is at the moment. The LMP2s can catch them all in the space of a lap, which shows that they are about 10-15 seconds, if that, apart at the moment, first to third.
Yes, not much gap at all between that first to third battle, as you were saying. And just having a look at Andonovski, once he gets close, at least by my reckoning, it might not have to be correct, but as soon as he gets close to the 334 car, it appears the rear end tends to break away just a little bit.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was certainly breaking away there when he tried to throw the inside into Maggots and Beckett's. It was very, very close between the two of them, but now Gonzalez is going to have to probably defend into Stowe. He keeps it to the left-hand side as we look at it. Andonovski pulls it to the outside now. Is he going to be able to hold it a long way? No, he is not. Going to try and maybe get the run into the final chicane, see if he can get any kind of move through there. Gonzalez goes defensive once again. Andonovski switches back to the inside. That's a fantastic manoeuvre from Andonovski. Bit of a spin and a tap from there, a slide and a tap, should I say. Andonovski is through though. Gonzalez, nothing he could have really done about that, and the Macedonian driver now makes his way through and is going to go off up the road, you have to expect.
Yeah, Andonovski there was should we say, controllably out of control coming down towards the club chicane there. As you said, there was a big lurid slide coming into the chicane and a little bit of contact between the two of them on the in fact he was almost full opposite lock trying to save that car going down to the coming into the club chicane.
Yeah, absolutely. So a great fight, but Andonovski, he just went wide through Brooklands. Was that orchestrated to let him through? Did the team tell him that might not be quite within the rule? They might get a penalty for that, so have they just self-served it in a way and let Gonzalez back through? I didn't personally see anything wrong with that move down at the chicane, but it looked like he just gifted that position back again.
One thing that I might think is that if the 334 car had not been there, would Andonovski have actually saved that car? Or did the contact with the with the 334 car actually save him? And just as a result, due to that, he actually gained that position as well. So I think it probably could well have been out of consciousness, or perhaps getting a penalty in the future. They decided just to give that place back.
Yeah, I think they were playing it on the safe side there ever so slightly, just so that they didn't risk even getting a penalty there. Yeah, interesting move, because if I was driving there on my own and nobody was telling me anything, I think I would have kept that position if I was Andonovski, but I thought it was a great move actually, switching it, faking it one side, going into the other, made a great move in my opinion, but he's decided to give it back. Very sporting from him, it has to be said, and all the guys down at Drillers, very sporting from them, but they're going to have to do all of the hard work again, maybe use some traffic, but he didn't even really need traffic to make that move last time. He just went for it, he just sent it, and it did pay off in a position somewhat, so maybe he will be able to do it once again.
Yes, he's done it once. All he needs to do is do it again. I mean, it only took him, 20-25 minutes to make the move the first time?
Yeah, it has been a while. I'll have a look now, actually, for how it's been a good 12 minutes now since we started watching, and he's started before then as well. So, concerning for Andonovski. He might be losing time as well, maybe losing sight on P2 ever so slightly. The gap's not massive between P2 and P3. I'm just going to have a quick look to see what the gap is. 17 seconds from Kianak to Gonzalez. So he's not losing too much time right now, Andonovski. He's not letting Mugen get too far up the road by doing this, but he's certainly not being helped in his charge to try and get as many positions as possible.
Yes, particularly about where he meets the traffic. At least the last time round through the S's, he met the 51 car at possibly the worst possible moment, just before the last right-hander through the S's. And again, on his last time round Stowe as well, he also met GT traffic as well, and it's really not helpful for his quest to try and chase down that 3-4 car. Once again, you can see that in the relative timing. What was about 0.8 of a second before is now gone up to 2.5.
Yeah, just one piece of traffic and the game can completely change. We've seen that so many times already, and we'll no doubt see it again, I'm very sure about that. Either way, they've got to keep safe in the knowledge that the Fair Racing team is going to be getting the same treatment at some point. They did actually get quite unlucky when Andonovski was really catching. Gonzalez caught someone in the S section and lost about 2 seconds in a very similar fashion to what Andonovski just experienced there. So it just ebbs and flows throughout the race. In the end, it works out about the same. You might feel like you get particularly lucky one race or you're particularly unlucky another, but in the end, all of the drivers, all of the teams do tend to keep a very similar kind of look within the traffic overall in the race.
And the car behind Andonovski at the moment is the Juices Motorsport number 15, currently driven by Joao Barbosa, but he's 39 seconds back, so not really a threat for the number 17 Drillers eSport car as it stands. But again, that gap towards Gonzalez may well be has indeed been cut down almost in half due to traffic that the 334 car met through the S's this time round.
Yeah, indeed. Seeing a lot of support for the Fair Racing team in the YouTube chat at the moment, by the way. It's from their drivers, it must be a bit, but there's a lot of people behind Chris Gonzalez at the moment. Seeing Max Schulten and Paul Holt in there for Fair Racing team, cheering on their driver, of course. I've seen Joao Barbosa was there earlier, cheering on the Juices guys. Eric Schmeider there now as well, who is a regular at Juices Motorsport Club. So yeah, lots of drivers cheering on their team while they're not driving, of course, and I guess they're cheering on their team while they're driving for them as well, but in a different way. As this battle continues, there is a bit of a moment for Chris Gonzalez. He loses a bit of time. Andonovski doesn't exactly gain from it though. Got a huge slide out of the loop that time, and he's going to have to do all of that hard work again, really. That was a prime opportunity for him to really get onto the back of Gonzalez, but he just ruined it almost with a big slide running onto the Wellington Straight.
Yes, a big lurid slide coming out of Aintree onto the Wellington Straight. It's certainly something that won't make the tyres happy.
No, they're going to be getting a bit warm, and that's exactly what you want to avoid, because they're modelled very well on R Factor 2. If you do get them outside of the temperature window, then you're in big trouble, and you don't want to be doing that, especially. Going through Maggots and Beckett's once again then, as Chris Gonzalez and Timothée Andonovski continue to battle. Oh, it's a big moment. Oh, and a big spin for Andonovski. Good save to force it into only a half spin, but that's the kind of stack-up we can see in traffic, and there you go. Drillers ending up on the wrong side of that one. Don't really think that was anybody's fault, but Timothée Andonovski just going for a small half spin and losing about 5 seconds in that little incident.
Yes, it's almost like Andonovski was caught out by the speed that he came up on the, now slow 334 car, because 334 car was stuck behind some traffic. It's almost like he was surprised by the closing speed between himself and the 334.
And by the way, everybody can blame that on Nick Newcomb, because literally moments before he said, "It's a pretty clean race, this," and then Andonovski just goes for a spin. Not that was dirty driving or anything from Andonovski, but it's just a bit of an incident there that we haven't really seen. So I would agree with Nick, but just maybe poor timing on the point. Not that he could have known. Either way, we're about 4 hours through this race now, and 1/3 distance has been completed. We're going to take a quick commercial break now, and when we come back, there will be 8 hours remaining of the Film Vault 12 Hours of Silverstone.
The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 2, Film Vault 12 Hours of Silverstone, is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Leap Gaming, SimLab, Motorvision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, and AMD Ryzen Radeon.